Fake HOA tried to remove a tank from a veterans park. I'm Ethan Carter, a park caretaker and Vietnam veteran in Oakwood Pines. This is the story of how a fake HOA tried to remove a historic tank from our veterans park, a sacred tribute to our fallen heroes, and how their actions sparked a community backlash that brought them down. Oakwood Pines was my home for the past 15 years, a peaceful suburb where kids flew kites and neighbors honored our veterans at the local park. The Veterans Park, a small but cherished green space, was my responsibility as caretaker. It housed a restored WA-era Sherman tank, a symbol of the sacrifices made by soldiers like my father, who fought at Normandy. The tank, olive green and gleaming, sat proudly on a concrete base with a Veterans Memorial sign nearby, a place where we held ceremonies to remember our heroes. Then Margaret Voss swept in, declaring herself HOA president without a vote. In her black uniform with a bold white HOA logo, she looked like a wannabe dictator, not a neighbor. Her rules were suffocating: no unapproved memorials, no visible clutter, and her obsession: no military relics. That's what made our tank her target. Margaret's reign started small, but turned ugly fast. She'd patrol in her golf cart, clipboard in hand, issuing fines for the smallest infractions. My neighbor Luis got a $200 penalty for unapproved porch lights. Another friend, Amina, was fined for a messy mailbox. It was petty, but Margaret had a knack for intimidation. She'd hand out fines with a venomous, "just keeping Oakwood perfect," while digging up dirt to keep people in line. I heard she'd threatened Luis's landscaping business with a fake permit violation. I tried to stay out of it. Maintaining the park and honoring our veterans kept me busy, but Margaret's bullying was impossible to ignore. The tank became her obsession. She called it a hazard, claiming it deterred visitors, despite it being a park centerpiece that drew respectful crowds. She sent violation notices, fining the park committee $500, then $1,000. Despite my explaining it was a historical monument with city approval, I'd show up to HOA meetings, my veterans cap on, and call her out. "This tank honors our fallen Margaret." "You've got no authority," she glared, her fake smile slipping. "This is my community," she snapped, once slamming her gavel. Her community. We all contributed to the park, but Margaret acted like a tyrant. Whispers grew. Neighbors were fed up but scared. She'd spread rumors, like claiming Amina's tutoring gig was unregulated, to keep us quiet. The tension built over months. Margaret's HOA crew, all in matching black uniforms, patrolled like enforcers. They'd knock on doors demanding compliance and leave threatening letters. My friend Priya was fined for unapproved garden lights. Another neighbor, Sam, got hit for a messy lawn during a drought. It was infuriating, but people were intimidated. Margaret had hinted at reporting the tank to the city for safety violations. The park had all its permits, but her threats burned. I'd catch her eyeing the tank from her cart, her gaze predatory, and knew she was planning something. When I took a weekend to visit my sister, Margaret struck. She sent a $5,000 fine and a notice demanding the tank's removal or face legal action. I got back eager to prepare for our Memorial Day ceremony, only to find the papers nailed to the park's flagpole. My gut churned. I texted Amina, who'd had her own run-ins with Margaret. "She's despicable." Amina replied, "I wanted to fight, but I'm a caretaker, not a lawyer." Then came the morning it all exploded. It was a crisp May sunrise, the park glowing with golden light. When I heard gasps from early visitors, I ran over and saw the tank neon orange spray paint, screaming, "Remove this," across its side, the paint dripping onto the grass. The Veterans Memorial sign was toppled, smeared with mud, and the $5,000 fine notice was nailed to the flagpole. My heart sank. This wasn't just vandalism, it was an attack on our heroes' memory. I stood there, broom in hand, my blood boiling. Across the park, Margaret and her HOA crew stood in their black uniforms, smirking. Margaret held a spray can, her chin high, like she'd won a war. Veterans and park visitors gathered, phones out, recording. I marched over, my voice trembling with rage. "This tank honors our fallen Margaret. You've crossed a line." She laughed, her eyes cold. "Your relic doesn't belong here. Ethan, remove it or we will." The crowd gasped. That tank wasn't just a display. It was a symbol of sacrifice, a gathering point for veterans to heal and remember. Repainting it would cost thousands, delaying our ceremonies. Luis ran up furious. "This is a disgrace, Margaret." But Margaret just shrugged her crew, nodding like drones. I called the police, my hands shaking with anger. They arrived, lights flashing across the defaced tank. Margaret spun a story about protecting community standards, claiming the tank was a safety risk. Her crew backed her lies, their faces smug. The cops took statements, but Margaret's confidence made my skin crawl. She thought she'd win. I looked at the tank, the paint still wet, and felt rage and betrayal. But I'm a veteran, I've faced worse. This was our park, our tribute, and I wasn't letting Margaret destroy it. The next day, I couldn't shake the image of that defaced tank. I started talking to neighbors and veterans, quietly at first in the park, and over coffee. Luis was livid. Amina was ready to fight. We dug into the HOA records and struck gold. Margaret's presidency was a fraud. She'd forged signatures to seize power, and her rules violated city ordinances. I'd been meticulous, saving every notice, recording her threats, and I sent them to a lawyer friend, Elena, who worked in community advocacy. Amina's security camera caught Margaret and her crew sneaking into the park at dawn, spray cans in hand, defacing the tank with glee. Priya found bank statements showing Margaret had siphoned HOA dues for her cart and uniforms. The community erupted. Neighbors who'd stayed silent shared stories, fines, threats, lies. Sam told how Margaret had fined his kids' charity bake sale, calling it commercial. I reached out to veterans organizations, and they rallied, contacting media and local leaders. We held a meeting at the park, 100 strong, joined by veterans and supporters. I spoke my voice raw about my father's sacrifice and the tank's meaning, only to face this at home. Louis shared how Margaret had fined his landscaping tools, calling them unsightly. The crowd seethed. We filed complaints with the city council, sent our evidence footage, financials, everything to the police, and contacted the local news. Margaret sensed the tide turning and came for me. She stormed into the park, still in her black uniform, her face twisted. "You're ruining Oakwood, Ethan," she snarled. I stood firm, heart pounding, my cap on. "No, Margaret, you did." She stormed off, but I saw fear in her eyes. She knew her reign was over. Then the backlash erupted. Amina posted the security footage online, and it went viral, racking up millions of views. News stations ran it with headlines like "Fake HOA Defaces," "Veterans Tank." Veterans groups shared it. Their comments, a storm of outrage, calling Margaret a disgrace to patriotism. Strangers started a crowdfunding campaign to restore the tank, raising enough to repaint it and more. Margaret tried to fight back, posting about maintaining standards, but the backlash was merciless. Millions of comments tore her apart, her accounts deleted under the weight of scorn, her crew scattered, some confessing to the police to save themselves. The city didn't wait. They launched a criminal investigation, and the police reopened my case with the new evidence. The final showdown came at Margaret's last HOA meeting, a desperate bid to cling to power. She stood at her podium, megaphone in hand, her voice shrill. But the room was ours. I walked in with Elena, 2 cops and a city official. The crowd parted, phones live streaming to a global audience. The official read the charges: fraud, embezzlement, and felony vandalism. Margaret's face collapsed as the cops cuffed her, her uniform sagging as they let her out. Her crew tried to flee, but neighbors blocked the doors, demanding justice. The city dissolved her fake HOA, and Elena filed a civil suit for damages. Margaret's fall was brutal. She faced jail for vandalism and fraud, plus fines she couldn't pay. The lawsuit forced her to sell her house to cover the tank's restoration, legal fees, and compensation for emotional distress. She slunk to a rundown apartment, her name a curse in Oakwood and beyond. The backlash never relented, her face on protest signs, her story a warning of HOA overreach. We restored the tank shinier than ever and held our Memorial Day ceremony bigger than ever, with veterans from across the state joining us. The community thanked me, but I owed them and our veterans for standing with me. I'm just Ethan, a caretaker who loves his park and his country's heroes. But Margaret taught me something tyrants thrive on: silence. When we spoke out, when the world roared, we crushed her. It wasn't just about a tank. It was about honor, community, and the courage to fight back. Margaret's bitter and alone and reviled proved justice stands tall when veterans unite.